Last month, I got flown out to LA to appear in an episode of Circle of Secrets by Jubilee Media. I've been wanting to talk about this and the experience and the people I met, but I had to wait until the episode came out, and now thankfully the episode's out, so I'm free to talk. So when I first got this email, I didn't know what to expect. They said, hey, we'd love for you to appear on this show. And I had friends who'd been on different Jubilee Media shows before, and I called them and I asked and said, hey, what did you think of this? What was it like? And they said, hey, it was really good for my social media, or it was a lot of fun. But they didn't describe it as this really big, meaningful thing. And they just said, hey, it was an opportunity, and I got exposed. Okay, cool. But I looked at the episode they sent me, or the video they sent me, and it was a real thing. This was not just playful or entertaining or fun. This was people talking about some really deep, heavy stuff. I was like, okay, this could be interesting. I said, worst case, I go out there, I get a trip to LA, I get to go see some friends. Best case, maybe I get to be a part of something meaningful. But again, my hopes weren't really that high. So I get out there, and I've done some documentaries before, but usually that was just telling my own story or doing news hits where I'm talking about criminal justice reform or the effects of policy. But it hasn't really been anything that was big and kind of cohesive or working together. So I get out there and I get to the studio, and there's security out front. And I walk in and say, hey, am I in the right place? And the guy sitting down says, hey, were you in prison? I said, yeah. He said, well, you're in the right place. So at that point, I didn't really have the highest hopes. I was like, okay, they just got a bunch of us who were locked up. We're going to come in, we're going to talk about stories, and that's going to be it. But instead, it ended up being a really powerful thing. That guy who was sitting down, who first, basically told me I was in the right place, was one of the ones who opened up. And he told a story that was very near and dear to my heart, not necessarily because of my own personal experience, but because of some work I do in the juvenile center. So he talked about how it was so much safer for him when he got in trouble, when he was on probation or when the cops were around or when he was locked up, than it was when he wasn't, when he was at home. And there's a kid in the juvenile center that I talked to. I remember when he went back in, I was like, bro, what are you doing? You just got out. What's going on? And he said, you don't understand. I'm better off in here. I am safer in here. And I don't think a lot of people really understand what it's like to be a kid, to be scared, to not know what to do, and feel safer inside an institution surrounded by people convicted of crimes than it is to be in your own home or your own neighborhood. It's terrifying to think that we allow people to live in those situations. And then when they do something, we say, oh, it's just a bad kid. Maybe that's a misunderstood kid. Maybe that's a kid who isn't being kept safe. Maybe that's a kid who isn't having his needs met. Maybe that's a problem we need to address, because when that kid lashes out or does something violent, which is the experience he has obviously had in his life, he's doing the most normal human thing. He's learning from the people around him, and he's doing anything possible to keep himself safe. It just breaks my heart, because if that kid had a safe place, if he had people who supported him, if he had a place he could go, he would not be in there right now. And we are so quick to judge people once they've messed up, but we're so slow to actually give them support on the way there. All the times that they reach out for help, or all the times that something could be done, we're nowhere to be found. And then as soon as they mess up, we say, oh, we knew he was a bad kid all along. We knew he would come to this. We knew that's what he would do. And everybody else there had a story to tell. And it wasn't the same story. We didn't all come from the same place. Some people were born rich. Some people were born poor. Some people had violent crimes. Some people had nonviolent crimes. But it was all around the same thing. That something in our life was missing that caused us to do what we did. Because happy, healthy people don't go to prison. Happy, healthy people don't wake up and decide, I'm going to go, steal a bunch of stuff and buy drugs, or I'm going to go commit a violent crime. No, happy, healthy people get up and they live their lives. But people who are stressed, people who are traumatized, people who are living in poverty or scarcity, well, they get up and they do what they have to do, or they react in ways that they've learned to react. And a lot of times that's really unhealthy. And the level of honesty and rawness that came from these people was really, really powerful. Because some of it was kind of shallow or kind of surface level, oh, I did this. Other stuff was real. Other stuff was about what I was willing to do to survive and what it looked like and what it felt like. And I was grateful for the people being so willing to open their hearts and open their mouths and share these stories and share these secrets. The other thing was, I was really struck by how exceptional some of these people were. Pretty much everybody there was really successful. One guy had gotten out of jail or gotten out of prison and said, hey, I'm going to be in Hollywood. And everybody's like, bro, you were locked up and you're homeless and you're never going to be. And now he's in the credits for 10 Hollywood movies. He's in the credits for the Avengers movies. He's built something. He's done that. The other guy said, oh, I want to do something. Now he's written a book and he speaks all over and he runs a nonprofit and he runs 3 businesses. And it's amazing to see what people can do when all that traumatized, anxious energy is given a direction that's not the old direction or not the old habits, the old patterns. And it's really cool to see people thrive. I think one of the things that actually struck me the most is there was somebody who was there who was still struggling, to this day is still struggling. Because we like to think of success stories as really clear, A and B, or maybe ABC, oh, we're in this place, we do something bad and we find redemption. But really, it's a lot of backsliding, it's a lot of struggling, and not everybody gets through that. Not everybody gets through that A or that B into that C stage. Not everybody finds redemption or their second chance. And so when this individual was sharing where he's still struggling or what he's still doing or how it's still going, it really touched me. It was was one of those things that other people thought was funny, but to me, I can relate to. And his thing was stealing. And I can't relate to stealing. That was never really my thing. I did commit a robbery, but that wasn't like I'm compulsively stealing. That was like, hey, I have no money. I need to get drugs. But I understand that doing something to fill the void, doing something to fill that feeling of just absolute emptiness, whatever that is it drugs? Is it sex? Is it something else? Like, how do I make that feeling go away? How do I get through this day? And so I was really impressed that he was willing to come in and share that honestly. Other people thought it was funny because of some of the details. It's that ability to relate to other people. And I think for me, the more we have these conversations, the more we open up and we share our perspectives and our experiences, the more we can really relate to the other person. Because it's really easy to judge someone from the outside and say, oh, well, I wouldn't do that. Well, yeah, but I haven't had their life experience. If I had had their life experience, if I was around the people they were around, would I really be a different person? I don't know. And it seems like in some cases that's true. You know, some of these individuals were in really bad spots and basically kind of clawed their way out when nobody else did. Other people had support and they had ways to kind of get out of where they were. And they had people who went with them or people that pulled them up. But what I saw pretty universally and what I really love to see among this group is, kind of like I was saying before, when someone's been hurt and they've been traumatized, there are two reactions. The first is they just stay in that pain. They either turn it inside and they're depressed and they often hurt themselves, or they turn it outside and they just like burn everybody in the world. They're like, if I'm going to hurt, you're going to hurt. I'm going to make everybody suffer. Then the other side is people who actually get through it. People who get through the fire and who have the scars and have the burns, but they turn around and they reach back in the fire to pull somebody else out. And that was what I saw in this group, was people who were dedicated. And it is one of the things that I love the most. And it's also one of the most trying and difficult things, because sometimes we get pulled back in the fire and that's a terrible thing. Sometimes we just keep getting burned over and over and we can't quite get somebody out because they're not ready to take that step or they're not ready to take our hand. And there's a point at which, yeah, we've got to sometimes say, I need to step back from the fire for a little bit for myself. But what I saw was these people who were willing to stick their hand back in the fire and help somebody else out. And I love seeing that in people, whatever they're coming from, whatever their background, whatever their experience. When we have suffered and we know what it is to suffer, and our response is we don't want anybody else to suffer, that is the kind of person that I want to be, and that's the kind of person that I want to be around. So I was grateful to meet these people. And I was also really impressed with the production staff. I think I had this idea that it was going to be reality show and it was going to be creating drama and creating conflict and trying to find ways to sensationalize. And instead, every single person I talked to was thoughtful, they were present, they were engaged, they were actually worried about whether we were okay or what we needed or how they could support us rather than how they could like create drama and exploit us. I was really impressed with the whole project. And they actually did it in partnership with a nonprofit. It's all about kind of getting to the bottom of people's stories. Like, how do we get to that underlying trauma? How do we get to that underlying issue so we can help you heal? Because so often we look at just kind of the surface level things. Like, someone's been traumatized and they turn to alcohol, so they stop drinking. Cool, like that's great. I'm glad you've taken that out of your life, but have you addressed the underlying trauma? Or are you just kind of like switching to a different coping mechanism? Or somebody follows into any kind of compulsive arrangement or any unhealthy relationship or any whatever, just addressing the surface level doesn't fix the issue. Like, we have to go deep. And that was why I was so grateful for the woman who ran that, who said, hey, I'm really interested in this, and this is what we do, and this is how we help people, because that's a powerful thing. Everybody there, not everybody could necessarily identify it, not everybody was necessarily ready to talk about it, but everybody basically said, yeah, there's something there. Like, there's an issue, there's a lack, there's a void. And I know for me, it always felt that way. And I've had a bunch of different ways to explain it. Like, oh, this was trauma, or this was a dopamine deficiency, or oh, this was ADHD. In reality, it doesn't matter what we call it. There is something there that needs to be healed. There's something inside of us that needs love. And man, that's a hard thing to find in prison. But honestly, I had more honest and real vulnerable conversations about things like that with people in prison because they just reached that breaking point. They just could not keep going forward. And they were like, bro, I need to do something different. I don't know how to do this anymore. I don't know how to deal with this. I don't want to feel this way anymore. And that was the most amazing thing, is again, people who just give up completely and then find a way forward. People who have that religious experience, or that spiritual experience, or that personal experience, and seeing that in on a prison rec yard or in a prison cell or even in a dormitory, when you just see somebody go through it and then figure out a way to create the space. And for me, it was a really powerful thing. I was there and I remember being in this place where I was like, I don't know how to keep going. Like, I cannot do this another day. And then suddenly finding space. And in that space, I was able to keep going. In that space, I was able to make choices and change the things that I was doing. And I watched numerous people go through that. I watched transformations of people in prison. And I think that's the thing. It's a crucible, right? So a crucible separates the gold from the dross, like the thing that we want from the thing that we don't, because we all come in mixed. We all come in dirty. We all come in traumatized. We all come in with all our stuff. But you go into a place and it purifies us. And sometimes it burns us to a cinder. Like, sometimes it burns everything that's there. And you see people who are broken who don't come back or don't make it out. But what you see is the people who do make it out, the people who make it through, they tend to be stronger. They tend to be more caring, more empathetic. They tend to be better. They tend to be like more full and complete human beings because of the suffering they've endured. And I think because of the fact that with that suffering, they again reach back into that fire. So it's not just about them and I'm going to escape this and I'm going to be okay. It's instead about, hey, this has purified me. And what I've realized is that I am not alone. This world is not about me. It is about us. And how can I reach back in this fire and help this next person? How can I help this other person in my life? And also, how can I help myself? Because I'm as deserving of love and help as the next person is. And a lot of times, those of us who've been through this turn into people pleasers and only try to help other people out of the fire and never take care of ourselves and expect somebody else to do it. And the reality is we can be there to help another person and another person can be there to help us, but we can't expect any of those things. We can't expect somebody to solve our problems or meet our needs. Nobody's there but us. Like, that's the guarantee. So if I show up and I can meet my needs and I show up and I can help somebody else learn how to meet their needs, now we're talking about pulling somebody out of the fire. It's not give a man a fish, it's teach a man to fish. I was not expecting this whole experience to be as deep, as meaningful, as profound as it was, but it was really good. So I hope you check out the episode. I really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed meeting the people there. And we're talking about getting back together. We're doing a cruise for Secondchancer Foundation in November, and we're hoping we can invite them along. So a couple people have already said they want to sign up. They want to come with us. We're going to go down there. We're going to reconnect. We're going to share some stories. But I think we're just going to have a good time. We're just going to kind of like relax in that space of enjoying ourselves. Because so often, when you get out of prison, you have this compulsive work ethic. And a bunch of us talked about this on the show. We don't know how to turn it off. We don't know how to slow down. We don't know how to stop. So go into a place where you're on a boat in the middle of the ocean, you don't have a lot of choice but to stop. Like, I guess we could try to keep working or try to keep posting videos, but in reality, hopefully we'll just stop. We'll sit by the pool. We'll go out on the island. We'll go do whatever we're doing. And again, it's to support a good cause. So if you're interested, the link is in my bio. If you go to the link tree, it'll give you all the information. You can call Genetic Ready Go Travel. And we're really excited because, hey, I get to turn 40 on the ocean. I'll be off probation for the first time in my adult life. I'll be actually free to enjoy myself and spend time with people. So I hope you enjoy the episode of Circle of Secrets. Hope to see you on the cruise and have a wonderful day.